Hi guys, this is a video that I've been meaning to put together for a little bit now. It's not very interesting, I'm afraid, but it's the fundamentals. It's about cabling and connecting devices together, and what you might find when you go to various venues. To quickly say that we've got on the desk, we've got the laptop as usual, rebranded now for Native Instruments. Got a Gemini FX7000 mixer, purely just to show a mixer, and a Prosound amp, just so you've got the connections. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the varying levels of connectivity depending on the system that you wish to use, or what I mean by system is controllers or queuing systems and various other bits and pieces. But most importantly, got a cup of tea. Grand. Right, let's look at a very simple system first. Now, one of the things when you're DJing, you want to be able to cue in headphones. I know some people, and I've seen some people who don't. They simply connect their laptop into a mixer. So the very simplest is to connect your laptop to a mixer, and all you need is something like this cable. It's a 3.5mm stereo to twin RCAs. So one end goes into our laptop. I don't think I need to show that connection. And then the other one goes into the input channel on our mixer. Now that might be in the venue, or it might be your own mixer. With that setup, we've got the laptop directly connected to the mixer. We haven't got any pre-queuing options. Basically, we hear what the audience hears. So that's the very simplest. Let's move it up one level. Now again, we're going to still use this cable, so we've got 3.5mm into the laptop and the RCAs. Leave those in the mixer. Just move my cup of tea out of the way. Let's move it up one level into a pre-cue. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, hang on a second, he's just told me that he can't pre-cue if he's just using a cable from his headphone socket on the laptop directly into the mixer. That's where these little toys come in. These are Numark PHX USB headphones. They look exactly the same as the standard Numark PHX headphones, except in the box you get a cable with a USB connector on the end. All you have to do is plug this into your laptop into a USB port. I'm sure you know how USB ports work. Okay. And what it will do is it'll auto set itself up. It's got the drivers built into it. Effectively, it's an external sound card built into the headphones. So we've got the 3.5mm running from our headphone socket into the mixer. We've got the USB headphones into our USB port. And we would now configure our chosen software to allow the master output through the headphones and the cue output, the master output through the headphone socket of the laptop and the cue output through the USB headphones. They show up as a USB device. So now, with our laptop, a pair of headphones and a cable, we've connected our system to the mixer and we can now pre-cue with our headphones. That's great. These headphones are about £40, cable's about £10, and the laptop is whatever you've paid for your laptop. So, as a very simple system, works very well. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move on. When I say level, I don't mean that in a snobbish way. I'm not saying that this is better than that. I'm just going to move it up the scale a bit to the next stage. So, I'm going to disconnect the cables that I currently have and take the headphones out. I'm just going to move those to one side, and we're going to look at the next step, as it were, or the next level up, and that is using a proper or a true external sound card in a little box. This one's a Numark DJIO, plenty of others available, so take your choice, pay your money, take your choice. So how are we going to connect that? Now, at the minute, what we're doing is we're connecting into a mixer, but with this we're also going to connect into the amplifier directly. Two methods that we can connect. Now, these are USB devices, so a USB cable will run from this to your laptop and you will install your drivers and configure your software. Now the first configuration that you can make in your software for example, if we use Virtual DJ as the reference, is you can have on here, you can have master channel to output 1, headphone channel to output 2. How does that look when you cable it up? Well, what you would do is you would put output RCA cables into your sound card, and you'd plug those into a single channel on your mixer. Then what we need to do is grab a pair of headphones. For this I'm using a pair of Pioneer HDG 1000s, and they simply plug into the front of this particular sound card. The actual connection configuration might be slightly different on the sound card that you have or are thinking of getting. What we now configure our chosen software, if we use Virtual DJ as the example as I said, then we would configure output 1 for master, output 2, which feeds the headphones as well, as our Q channel. So that's that system. Now what would we use that with? For example, I would use that setup when using that. Now that's my, it's called a 4DMC. It is actually a Mixmeister controller that's been rebranded for use with Virtual DJ and it's fully mapped in for 4 decks. Okay, so that's the MIDI control surface and that's the sound system. That's that done. Now, if we were running a system where we wanted to have, we want to make use of a mixer because we might be using control surfaces that don't have the full control systems that they have. It might just be transport control playback. For example, I mean something very simple is a couple of Korg NanoPads, for example. You could have a couple of these, about 30 quid each, and you could actually map these into your software so that the buttons control your transport and your loading. You've got 4 scenes on these, so you can have 4 different systems in place per unit. So you might have, I don't know, effects linked into the touchpad and play, pause, cue buttons, hot loops, menu load, browser loadings, browser configuration changes loaded, mapped into that. So, but what you don't have when you're using control surfaces just for the transport and loading systems in your software is you don't have mixer controls. So what we need to do now is just change a little bit by adding another cable. First of all, we're not going to use the headphone socket on the DJIO or on the sound card. What we're going to do is we're going to plug in an additional RCA into channel 2, onto output 2 of our sound card, and we're going to pop that into our secondary channel on our mixer. So now we're going to be feeding, once the software is configured, we're going to be feeding one deck into one channel of the mixer and the other deck into another channel of the mixer. So in Virtual DJ, for example, you just put it as an external mixer selection, and what it'll do is one deck goes to one output, the other deck goes to the other output. What it does mean is we do need to now plug our headphones into our mixer. Okay. What we do then to control the EQs and the crossfader and the volumes is we now use our mixer. Okay. Because we've got one channel, one deck being fed in here and one deck being fed in here. This happens to be a 3-channel mixer, by the way, but a 2-channel is much simpler, just doesn't have the 3rd channel. So now we can use the volume sliders and the crossfader. Now we're not getting MIDI, this is only an audio system. You can buy MIDI mixers, but to be honest with you, if you're using an external mixer, there's no point setting it up in MIDI mode. You might as well just use it as an audio device. So this is basically going to control the audio as though we'd plug turntables in. The fact that the turntables don't exist in real life, they're just computer based, makes no difference to it. So that's the kind of next stage up through the system. You might also, I mean, for example, there's a DJ Steel here. Again, use this with a single output from the DJIO. Okay, there's a bigger version, it's called the RMX, which has sound card built in. I'll move on to MIDI devices with sound cards now. In fact, before I do so, let me just have a quick look at how we can connect into a mixer from a sound card. Sorry, not a mixer, an amplifier. So if I just turn the mixer out of the way just so it doesn't distract. What we have on this particular amplifier, we've got two XLR inputs, which are balanced inputs. Now the unbalanced input system on this particular amplifier is 1/4 inch jacks. Some amplifiers have RCA as unbalanced, some have RCA and jacks as unbalanced. Now what we can't do is we can't plug these cables, because we've got RCAs, into this particular amplifier because they're the wrong connector. So I'm going to have to get another cable, and the cable I need to get is one of these. Okay, what we have is we've got RCAs on one end and jacks on the other. So start normal, plug the RCAs into the back of our sound card, and our jacks simply go into the back of the amplifier. If I plug the headphones back in, okay, we're using output 1 for the master and output 2 is the Q, again configured in our software. So now the laptop is directly connected through the sound card to the amplifier. Now we would have to make use of a control surface which has a mixer section, such as this one, so that we can control the EQs and the faders and the crossfaders and so on and so forth. Okay. Now, if you wanted to connect into a balanced source using this setup, or you might be faced with going into a booth and finding nothing but the XLR cable. Okay, the XLR cable is plugged into the amplifier at one end. You might end up with just that sticking into the booth. What we need to do is we need to have some method that we can connect to this device. Now, one of those methods is we could create it using a DI box. Now, at the moment, you can see this is a purely unbalanced source. So what we'll do is we'll disconnect that out of the amplifier, and we'll connect that unbalanced source into this DI box. This happens to be a Behringer Ultra DI20. So we've got unbalanced coming from our sound card into our DI box. Now obviously we need to connect our DI box to our amplifier. Now this creates a balanced output. Now to connect that, what we need is an XLR cable. Now you might be faced, as I said, you might be faced with the XLR cable just hanging out the back of the booth, in which case you just plug in. Simple as that. If you're not and you need to plug into the amplifier, you have your own XLR cables, you just simply connect the other end of your XLR cable into your amplifier. Okay? So we're now connected into the balanced input on the amplifier. These little boxes cost about 25 quid, battery powered, or they will run off phantom power if the amplifier provides it. Right, breathe and a quick taste of the tea, I think. This is all very geeky, I'm afraid. Now I don't profess to be an expert on this sort of thing. I'm only purely going on my own experience. Right. So what we've covered so far then is we've covered a very simple system where we plug our headphone socket from our laptop directly into our mixer. We've covered a system whereby we plug our sound card and use headphones via the sound card into a mixer. We've covered plugging the sound card into using an external mixer with our sound card, so in two RCA cables, and we've also covered connecting our sound card directly into an amplifier using a proprietary box that goes in between. Just as a quick aside, this is just a little box I put together. Ignore the fact it's got Numark on it, just a sticker I had. This has two ground loop isolators in. Ground loop isolators can basically isolate the signal path so that you don't get a ground feedback. Now that creates, you'll know if you've got one because it hums. Power supplies from laptops and various other devices can create hums on the audio signal. There's lots and lots of information about connecting power supplies to various circuits within venues. Please feel free to search for them. I won't go into those. But this little box, it's got a couple of ground loop isolators in, and it accepts inputs, so I can put RCA inputs. I've got RCA outputs, so all I've done is use the ground loop in between. And it's also got pseudo XLR. They're not true balance, they're just pseudo. Pins 1 and 3, I think it's 1 and 2 are connected together. But that was made for a particular venue that I needed to play at before I got one of these. And I needed it quickly. So that's an option. All the parts in this box are available from Maplins. Okay. Right. Okay, let's move on to the next level. And as I say, the level is not there to denote snobbery or anything like that. It's purely as an indication of moving on up the scale a bit, price-wise normally. Now, for this, I'm going to use one of these. This is part of it. It's a Track Control S4. Okay. Now, this device has on the back of it, on its output, it has RCA master outs, also has 1/4 inch TRS balanced outputs. Right, now as you can see on this we've got full mixer because it's a 4-channel mixer, but you might not have the option of going directly into the amplifier at the venue, so you might have to go into their mixer. Right, again, how do we do that? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move the laptop out of the way because we're all familiar with USB and laptop connections. I'll put the track and control down and somewhere to put this in this melee of stuff that's hanging around. Right, so what we need to do on this occasion is we need to plug our Kontrol S4, please substitute your own control surface, into the club's mixer, because that's the connection systems that are going to allow us to use. Now this is actually very simple. All we need to do is connect our RCA cables from our master out on our unit and then plug those into the available channel that the venue allows us on the mixer. Now if you're plugging into the mixer, what you would do is you would plug into the available channel and then turn the volume on that channel up to full. If you can, deselect it from the crossfader and set all the parameters, all the EQs, the gain, everything to 12 o'clock, to midnight. The reason for that is because you're going to use the EQ and the gain controls and the volume sliders and the crossfader and everything on your control surface. So you don't want the mixer to play a part in that. Right. I think we're nearly approaching the end, because the next one is, we're not going to connect into a mixer this time. We're just going to go straight into the club's amps. So we've got our control surface. Okay. Now obviously on our control surface, incidentally, the headphones would just go into the front of your control surface. This one has a sound card built in. There's others, DJIO Pioneer, the Denon MC6000 and various others, Vestax, and on and on. So what we're going to do is we're going to connect this to our amplifier. Now how are we going to do that? Well, based on the fact that the unit itself has 1/4 inch balanced TRS, looks like that by the way, we need a cable that will do the job. Now because it's a balanced output, we want to remain a balanced output, so we've got a 1/4 inch TRS to XLR, and that's simply a case of plugging in the back of our device into the TRS output and then plugging in to the amplifier. Simple as that. So now that just happens to be one channel. I've got another cable there for the other channel. So that now will provide balanced output to the amplifier from our control surface. The other system, as I said earlier, you might be faced with just having XLR cables hanging out of the back of your the booth. In which case we can still make use of our TRS to XLR cable, because that is what we're going to be faced with in the booth. Okay, it's a female connector. The end of our cable which goes into the amplifier is a male connector, so thankfully those two will fit together, just like so. So even with a booth that's been plumbed in, for want of a better description, with XLR feeds, we can just use our own XLR cable to connect to it. Now balanced XLR or balanced cabling will allow longer runs, so that's why it's preferred in the audio industry. And there we go. Now with regards to microphones, microphones fit into various devices at various points. Now going back, the very simple system of just connecting your headphones, your laptop using the headphone connector, obviously you're limited on the mic. You can push the mic in through the computer's mic and configure your software to accept it, and likewise with the Numark PHX headphones you can do the same. Other units, such as with the DJIO or this S4, they both have microphone inputs, so you can make use of those if you use a mic. If you are using a you're a venue where you're using the mixer, you'll often find the mixer has a microphone input. Okay, most venues, to be honest with you, have a microphone plugged into it all the time anyway, so you can make use of that. That is about it. I'm sorry to have wasted 21 minutes or so of your life, but cabling is one of those things that it's such a tedious subject, and most people don't really kind of delve into it too deeply. And what that can lead to is you turn up to a venue and you suddenly find that you can't connect to the system that they have. I have seen this happen in real life. A chap turned up to a venue, and because he was inexperienced in club environments, he had no concept of the connection systems that he may encounter. He wasn't prepared. The end result was he didn't play. Nothing worse than that. Always worth a trip to the venue prior to you playing, just to check out the systems. Just make sure that you know how you're going to plug in to their system, whether it be via the mixer or directly via the amp. Now in fairness, most scenarios you will encounter will be an amplifier. There will be a mixer, because most clubs have built-in systems. So you turn up to the club and they've got a mixer, they've got a couple of CDJs maybe, you might even see some turntables still. So most of the time you'll be connecting into a mixer, so you can use just your standard RCA outputs. But it's not always the case, so just be a bit wary. Right, I think that's about it. So, hope that was helpful. Bye.